House on Forest Lane. When I was 14, we moved into a new house. It was a long stretch of road going through a wooded area called Forest Lane. This house used to be part of a ranch. The people who owned the ranch decided to divide it up into chunks of land and sell them all separately. We bought the house and a bit of land. Everything was nicely fixed up, so there wasn't any work that needed to be done, at least not on the inside of the house. The first 2 weeks after moving in were calm, but one day it all changed. My mom decided she wanted a garden with a gazebo. Behind the house, there was some empty land, and at the very back of that land was a large, almost dead tree. It only had a few leaves that showed signs of life on it. However, the weird part was all the bones around it. It's as if somebody had dug up large bones and placed them in the ground in a circle around the tree. They were real bones, not some Halloween props either. My mom wanted to have this tree cut down, and once we saw the bones, we began removing them. There was a lot more than we thought. They were not only in a circle around the tree, but there were some underground, buried around it as well. My parents became concerned, so they called the police and handed the bones over to be inspected, just in case there was a body buried in our backyard. I brought this up to some of my school friends, and they joked about superstitions like skinwalkers and wendigos and me getting cursed for touching those bones, but we just laughed it off and forgot about it. It was soon after we removed the bones that things started getting weird. By the way, none of the bones were human. They were from different animals like deer, coyote, even a bear and a cow bone were found, but none of them belonged to humans. The first strange thing was that a week after we removed the bones, the tree had suddenly come to life. It was starting to grow leaves all over it, becoming lush and green, even though it was dead just a week ago. My mom had joked that her plans of cutting the tree down had scared it back into life, but perhaps it was something else. I think we might have unleashed something that's been imprisoned inside the tree. I noticed that after this tree came to life, more and more strange things began to happen around the house. One night I woke up from the light outside the door of the garage flaring. The light was motion activated, and you needed to get pretty close to the garage door for it to come on. I looked out the window, but the light was so bright I couldn't see anything. It soon went out, and I went back to sleep. But it turned on several more times in that night. I didn't get up to look, but it interrupted my sleep nonetheless. I told my dad, and he said he would look into it in case the light was broken. It was time to drive to school, and we went to the garage in the morning, but it looked like there were claw marks on the door, like something had been trying to get its way inside. They weren't big, but they weren't exactly small. My dad decided it must have been some curious raccoon or other animal, and it must have set off the lights last night. I found it odd, because we didn't keep food in the garage. Why else would an animal try to get in? The next strange thing happened when one of my friends was staying over. It was evening, already dark, and my parents had gone out to get groceries, and it was a long drive from our house to the city. We were home alone for several hours. It was just me and my friend in the house, and we were sitting in the living room watching TV when the garage light came on again. My parents should not have been back by this time, and we both turned our heads towards the window at the same time. I got blinded by the light and didn't see much, but I heard my friend say, "There's something there." Then I remember the scratch marks and what my dad thought was a raccoon. So I told him it was nothing, and we went back to watching TV, soon forgetting about the whole thing. After an hour, the light came on again. This was around the time my parents should have been back. I looked at the driveway expecting to see their car, but once again, no one was there. My friend again pointed to the garage and said there was something there. I turned to look and caught a glimpse of it. It was something white, or maybe light gray. In the bright light, I couldn't really tell. From what I know, raccoons are not white. My friend said it looked like a dog. Why would some random dog be in our yard trying to get into our garage? Needless to say, we didn't own a dog. How one got in through the fence into our property anyways? I had no answers to these questions. Maybe it snuck in while the gate was open when my parents were leaving, but how did it get in here other times? I don't know. I realized that it had gotten late and my parents were still not back, and that thought was more unsettling to me than some stray dog getting in. I was worrying about my parents, and that's when I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps upstairs. I turned to my friend, and from the shocked look on his face, I could tell he heard them too. We were home completely alone. There wasn't supposed to be anyone there. Yet someone was walking upstairs. We both got up and looked at the stairs from around the corner, but we couldn't see any light up there. And it had gone quiet by the time we got there. The light in the yard turned on again, and everything was starting to freak me out. It was around this time I noticed that the TV was quiet, even though we were watching it, and we didn't turn it off before getting up. I looked at it, and it was off. My friend looked at me and said he wanted to go home. And that's when the lights in the living room went out. I was actually getting really scared. My friend began calling his dad and asked to be picked up, but his dad said that it was impossible because apparently there was an accident that had blocked the road here, which would explain why my parents were taking their time getting back. This could also explain the power outage. But it also meant that the two of us would be alone in this house, without electricity, for pretty much the entire night. And whatever was going on was not planning on stopping anytime soon. While my friend was on the phone, I went over to the light switch and tried it just to make sure the power was really out. Sure enough, nothing happened. The light on the garage was still working because it was solar charged, but everything else was pretty much dead. Originally, I would have gone up to my room, but after hearing those footsteps upstairs moments ago, I didn't really feel like going up there. And walking around the house in the dark didn't feel like a good idea. I was still thinking to myself, what to do about this whole situation when I heard a knock coming from the kitchen hallway. I was so startled I thought somebody was knocking on the back door. Me and my friend were both pretty scared, but I started to make my way to the kitchen and he followed close behind. The knocks really seemed to be coming from the back door. But who could there be this late at night? Not to mention that there was nothing in the back but fields. I tried to think positively that maybe it was a neighbor, somebody was in trouble, and ran all the way from the dirt road on the other side of those fields. We walked into the dark kitchen, but it was quiet. I walked to the door, parted the curtains covering the little window, but all I saw was pitch black. It didn't look like there was anyone there. Plus, the moon was full. If there was a person on the other side, I would have noticed. I could vaguely see the tree in the distance, but no one was at the door. I told my friend that there was no one there. Almost immediately as I said it, I heard another knock, this time from the hallway outside the kitchen. I checked the door. My first thought was that Mom had accidentally left it unlocked, and somebody might have come in and was now messing with us. I checked the door handle, only to find the door firmly locked. I was getting absolutely terrified at this point. I reached for my phone and remembered I left it in my room to charge. My parents might have tried to call me earlier about being late. There's no way I was going upstairs in the dark. As we walked back to the living room, the knocks continued. At first, it sounded like it was in front of us, like someone was knocking on the walls and the floors. Then it suddenly came from the kitchen again. At this point, we were both truly freaked out. My friend didn't want to stay here for the night, and honestly, neither did I. I was never superstitious or believed in ghosts or anything supernatural. But after this stuff just kept happening, I was seriously beginning to entertain the idea of the house being haunted. Then my friend said to me, "You should have left those bones alone." And suddenly it all made sense in my head. The dead tree, the bones around it, and all of this happening. It seemed logical that there would be a connection. The only problem was that my parents would never believe this if I told them. We were both hiding under the blankets in the living room when the lights suddenly came back on. Then I heard the sound of a car in the driveway. My parents were finally home. My friend ended up staying the night because it was way past midnight when my parents came back and they were too tired to drive him back. I could hardly sleep that night. And I had a really weird dream. I told my friend not to mention the weird stuff that happened to my parents. I got reprimanded for leaving my phone in my room and not picking up when I was called. I told my parents about the power outage and that my friend saw a white dog scratching at the garage. None of the hard to explain stuff. Dad went easier on me seeing how scared me and my friend were. He told me that I was a little too old to be scared of the dark, but he was lighthearted about it. He also told me that next time, if I needed to turn the lights back on, the breaker was in the garage. There was a sound of rustling leaves. It was so loud, I kept thinking that I need to close the window, but I couldn't move. It's like I was stuck between a dream and reality. Only half sleeping. I was aware I was laying in my bed on my back, but I couldn't open my eyes or move. I could see the tree almost as if I was seeing through the walls of the house. I could see people up in the branches on the trees. They all looked like people from the distance. I tried to count these shadowy shapes and counted at least 9 of them. Then at the bottom of the tree, I saw something white. At first, it looked like a dog. A mangy, malformed dog. Perhaps it was. perhaps it was something else entirely. It began to dig at the base of the tree and revealed a hole in the bark, and then began to crawl inside it. When it had vanished in the hole, the tree suddenly went dead, all the leaves falling off in an instant, and the figures on the tree vanished. Now ropes hung from the tree instead. At the end of each rope was a noose. The feeling of something terrible happening came over me. I woke up feeling like I had witnessed something incredibly terrible happen. I was scared, and I also felt incredibly drained and tired. I don't know if that dream was just my imagination going wild after what happened last night, or some sort of sleep paralysis. Regardless, it left me shaken. It was only around 5 in the morning, but I didn't feel like going back to sleep. It was a little misty outside, and I noticed movement by the garage from my window. The light didn't turn on, because it was already light enough outside. I saw something moving, and my thoughts went to the white dog my friend claimed he saw, and the white dog creature from my dream. In my mind, I knew it was the same thing. I don't know what got into me, but I decided to go outside and scare it off. I took my baseball bat and went outside. It was chilly. I was in my pajamas and a t-shirt. For a moment, I thought I could hear the thing scratching in the garage. I made another step closer. A crow cawed somewhere up in the trees, and the sound stopped. As I walked around my parents' car, I could see the garage door. There was no dog there, but there were scratches all over the bottom left side, and in the corner I could see a hole. It was small, maybe just big enough to put my hand into. It was silent, but I could feel it in my gut. That dog thing was inside the garage. I had no idea what would happen to me if I tried to go in. Honestly, I was scared. So I waited back at the house for my parents to wake up. I told my dad that something had gotten into the garage. He didn't seem concerned. We went to take a look. I took my baseball bat with me. Dad turned on the lights. There was nothing out of the ordinary aside from the smell. It stank like something died in there. The smell of rotten meat and eggs was making me feel nauseous, so I ran outside. My dad searched the place for the source of the smell but found nothing. We never kept any food or garbage in the garage, so there really wasn't anything that could be causing it. We didn't live in that house for very long. We moved out next spring, so it was only about a year. I never told my parents about the things that happened to me and my friend that night, and kept happening. The footsteps on the stairs and the knocks would happen several more times. And whatever that weird thing was that got into our garage, we never found the source of the smell, but we never managed to get rid of it. Our garage kept stinking like rotten meat and eggs for the remainder of the time we lived there. My dad sealed up the hole to the garage, only to find that something had torn it open again. One time I saw a smoky figure of what I think was a woman in a gown walking up and down the stairs. It faded before I could get a look at it. Something has been digging holes in her backyard, mostly around the tree. We found more bones in some of the holes. Once again, they were animal bones. I don't know what happened on that property. I only have a hunch that the tree played a big part in it. So if you ever find a tree that has a circle of bones around it, don't remove them. Just leave it alone. You'll sleep better at night if you do, I promise. Even in our new house, I still sometimes wake up from hearing the sound of the leaves rustling on that tree. Sometimes in the morning, there are scratch marks on our new garage. I can only hope that it's a raccoon this time and that nothing from that house has followed us into the new one.